Hey guys, welcome back to the bench today. I want to take a couple minutes to explain and show you exactly what 20 to 25 drops of smoke fluid does with these new legacy smoke units and the batting that they come with from Lionel. I've had this thing for 6 months. This is the new legacy cab forward. Smokes like a chimney. Runs great, sounds great, absolutely smokes like a chimney when I can get it to smoke. Now, I've already had this thing apart twice because I was having trouble with the smoke unit, and I was certain that I overfilled it because I put so much smoke fluid in this thing. It's only got one smoke unit in it. I'm going to show you some pictures that Alex M took when he took his apart, and I don't feel like taking this thing apart again for the third time. So I'm going to show you some pictures so you can see exactly what it looks like in here. You use the funnel or the pipette to put the fluid in there, and I mean it's pretty simple. But like I said, this thing will smoke great when it's smoking, and then it just quits. And I add fluid and I add fluid. I have a overhead loop through my bar and game room. It's about 75 feet, and I put 30 drops of fluid in here, and it would last one lap, 75 feet at speed step 60 on the legacy remote, on the cab 2 remote. Speed step 60, full effect. So it's, you know, it's putting out max smoke, and this thing gets hot. You can feel how hot it is. But one lap and it was out of smoke. I add more fluid to it, one lap and it's out. So for the second time, I took it apart, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't leaking, there wasn't fluid all over. I did have some fluid running down the side and on the bottom of the boiler, but because of this divider up here, it's a little difficult to get the fluid all the way down in there, even if you use one of these needles, because it's at an angle. So the smoke fluid catches on the reservoir, and it runs along the boiler, and it gets all over the place. So it's a little more difficult to get the fluid in there, and it can make a mess. But I wanted to show you exactly what 20 to 25 drops does to this thing and why I'm having a problem. So let's take a little closer look at this batting that I took out of it. Now this is the pre-cut batting that comes in the smoke unit when you get your engines from Lionel. It's pre-cut. You can see this one has a divider in it because inside this cab forward, it's one bowl with a metal divider running down through it. This sits underneath it. The divider sticks up here. One side is for the steam whistle, the other side is for the stack itself. Now you can see here that this piece of batting is really burnt, and it's burnt through both sides, and that's a good 1/8 of an inch thick. This came off of the whistle side. Obviously you don't blow the whistle all the time, so that resistor stays hot and burns itself through. And this was all peeled off because it was stuck to the resistor and whatnot. These smaller parts here were the other side of the stack because it wasn't as black and burnt, because that is obviously being used on a non-stop basis. But this stuff is really dense, and it just doesn't seem to absorb the smoke fluid very well. So I think that's where my issue was coming in to play. So I tore all this out. The first time I took it apart, I had the same issue with the burnt stuff, so I took all the burnt stuff off. You can peel this stuff apart with your fingers to open it up a little bit to help absorb more of the smoke fluid, which I did the first time, and the second time I just took it out. And I have a bunch of this replacement wick that I bought from Lionel. You can get it through their parts service department. Mike Reagan showed videos on this, how to use this. You pull this apart. Now I use 2 of these in the cab forward because you have essentially 2 chambers in one inside. So I took one of these, I pulled it apart, I wadded it up, I stuck it in on the whistle side. I took another one wadded it up, stuck it in on the smokestack side. So inside this, my cab forward now is 2 of these replacement wicks from Lionel. And after running it yesterday, it runs much better. It doesn't seem to burn up the fluid as quick. And although I did put 80 drops in this thing, I have pretty much rebuilt all of my older TMCC smoke units. I've replaced the wick in there that was burnt, took the sleeve off, like Mike shows you in his videos, and used this. I also use the needle applicator bottles. I have various sizes of needles, different bottles. This one is a 16 gauge needle. This dumps a lot of fluid. I only use that when I'm working at the bench because that's how I pre-soak the batting. All these other finer tips I use upstairs or on the layout. I take them to the clubs with me, and I was using this. I know I'm not going to start a war here with the type of smoke fluid, but I do want to discuss this here in a minute about going to the Lionel premium smoke fluid because I'm going to give that a try. So yesterday when I had this apart, I told you I put 2 of these in there. I had this bottle, I filled it up, and using this I measured and I put 80 drops in that reservoir to completely smoke or soak these 2 wicks. There was no fluid puddled in there. There was no fluid running out. When I tipped it upside down, it didn't have any running out or leaking. 80 drops to completely saturate those 2 replacement wicks. And I put it back together. I took it upstairs and ran it on my overhead, and that thing smoked like a chimney for 15 or 20 minutes. The smoke in the room was so bad I finally had to just shut it down for a while and go get a beer. My eyes were burning so bad. And I haven't turned it on today to see if it's still going to smoke because that fluid really dries up a lot more than you'd think it would dry up overnight. So when I do take it up there, I'll probably put another 30 drops in there just to get it wet again. Because like I said, the problem is this wick is not getting saturated. It's much easier to saturate this replacement wick and it stays wet longer. Now I said I was going to show you exactly what 20 to 25 drops does. Now keep in mind that this wick is no longer full size because I've taken it apart and pulled all the burnt stuff off, because once the stuff is burnt, the fluid will not absorb up through there as well. It still works, but not as efficiently. So I peeled all this stuff off, and this used to be a lot thicker than it is now. But all this stuff, we're just going to throw that in the trash. I'm going to take my dropper and I'm going to add 20 drops to this thing so you can see what it does. I'll go 10 each side. There's 10 on that side. There's 10 on that side, so there's a 20. Now, obviously when you fill this, because of the funnel inside of the boiler, you're not going to get an even 10 on each side because it has to trickle down through each side and it goes where it goes. But because of the slit in the batting, the bottom is one piece, so hopefully it will absorb the fluid up into it. But there's 20 drops. Okay, you can see that it did not go through that at all. There's no smoke fluid here. I can pick this up. It's dry. Okay, there's a little bit of oiliness from the fluid right here on the top, but 20 drops didn't do a thing to that. So if you add 20 drops like I was doing and you're getting a little smoke or no smoke, that's why. And your resistor is hot. You're just continuing to burn this thing. Any moisture that's on the top burns off like that. And now you're going to start just burning through your wick, which kills your smoke efficiency. So let's add another 10 drops to each side. So there's 20 drops on each side. We're at 40 drops total in this thing. And the other day, before I took it apart for the second time, I was running 40 drops at a time. And like I said, one 75-foot lap, max smoke effect. at speed step 60 on the cab too. I get one good lap out of it and then dry. And you can see the smoke fluid is about halfway down. Some spots it almost went all the way through, but that's 40 drops. And this, like I said, this batting is not the full thickness as it used to be when it was new. So we got 40 drops in this thing. You can see the bottom. It's starting to come through a little bit, but it is not soaked at all. If you hold it in your hands, you can feel the moisture on the top, but for the most part, the bottom is completely dry at 40 drops. And now you're running max smoke effects at a slow speed and your resistors are at max heat. That moisture disappears faster than you could possibly imagine it will. And that's what was frustrating me with this thing. I couldn't figure out, where is all this smoke fluid going? Every lap, 30 to 40 drops and smoke for one lap, and that's it. So we got 40 drops. Let's go another 20. You got 10 there, so that's 30 drops on that side, and it's starting to look pretty saturated. Let's hit the other side with 10. So there's 30 and 30, 60 drops total in this thing. Now we're getting through. Now it's pretty much soaked. You can squeeze it, nothing comes out. You can see a little moisture right there when you squeeze it, but it's not running out. There we got some. 60 drops to thoroughly saturate this thing and get it to ooze fluid out when you squeeze it. But remember, this isn't full size. If we added all this stuff back on there, we're going to be dry again. We'd probably have to add another 10 or 20 drops to get that wet. But remember, when I used these new wicks yesterday, I put 80 drops in it with this bottle and a 16 gauge needle right here at the bench so I could see it. And it took 80 drops just to completely saturate these two wicks. And it ran 15 or 20 minutes without adding any smoke fluid and putting out max smoke volume. Now, just for kicks, I took all that burnt up material that I tore off, put it on top of there. We were at 60 drops. Well, let's add 10 more. There's 10. Didn't even soak all that new material there. I think that was actually 81 right there, but we got an extra one. So we got 81 drops, 80 drops in this thing. See, all this stuff that I just put on there is still dry. It didn't go all the way through it, especially this hard, crusty, burnt one. And that is still essentially dry. It's not leaking out anything. So we put 80 drops in there. Let's just see what another 20 does. There's 100 drops. And you got a little wet puddle on the bottom. It's finally soaked through enough that the batting won't hold all the fluid, but it just sits there on the bottom. So if this was inside your smoke reservoir, that fluid's not going to go anywhere. And as this burns, dries up from the top, it's going to pull that fluid that's sitting down here up through the top. But anyways, my point is, it took 100 drops to get smoke fluid to run through there onto the bench. And I'm not saying put 100 drops in there. Mike would shoot me if he heard me say that. But what I'm just trying to explain is 20 to 25 drops in one of these new Legacy or Vision Line engines is nothing. And if you want your smoke unit to put max smoke effects for any amount of time, it's going to take more than 20 to 25 drops. If you have the ability to take it apart, like a lot of us do, I would get rid of this and put this in there, because every unit, every engine that I've rebuilt with these, they smoke much better. Now, one last thing I wanted to mention is the smoke fluid. I'm sure most of us are using this. Maybe not this flavor, but this brand. Most of us use this because our wives like it. whatever. You can pick different scents. I am going to take this apart one more time after I get some smoke fluid, because I'm going to find some Lionel Premium smoke fluid. I'm going to take this apart, take the batting out, put two new fresh wicks in there, and use the Lionel Premium smoke fluid. Because I know Mike Reagan swears by it. He said in his videos over and over that the smoke units are designed for it. The chemicals are a little bit different. I don't want to start an argument. I don't want to hear the reasons why. I'm going to do my own experiment, but I'm going to start fresh with 2 new battings and the Lionel Premium smoke fluid, and we're going to see if it smokes any better, if it smokes any longer, if it, you know, burns up any differently than this does. My big boy, my Vision Line big boy, is having the same problem. You saw the videos from San Diego. I couldn't get that thing primed. I couldn't get it to smoke farther than 30 feet. And I was putting 30 to 40 drops in each stack. Once I finally got that wick saturated by the end of the day, so it was like this, I could run 5, 6, 7 laps at max smoke output without having to add fluid. But it took all day and being paranoid of putting too much fluid in it to get to that point. So that's really why I take these things apart, is because I want to see what's going on in there. I don't want to flood the electronics with smoke fluid, but it's got to be going somewhere. And now I know this stuff just takes a ton of fluid. And if you run max effects, max smoke output, these things drink fluid faster than you can put it in there. So I hope that clears up any frustrations or irritations like it was doing to me with why I couldn't get these things to smoke for a long period of time. When in doubt, take it apart, see what's going on in there, and try some different batting, try some different fluid. When I get the new fluid and run that test, I'll do an update and let you guys know what I found out. So thanks for checking this out, and don't get me in trouble with Lionel. I'm just showing you what I've learned, what was frustrating me, and now this engine will smoke all day long. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time with the Lionel Premium Smoke Fluid.